Hello, how's everybody doing? Um, this is Pierre. We're doing another lesson for Dance Without Music. We're getting back into it. These lessons all go together. The ones that I'm doing right now. Okay. I just got from work. Um, I have to do this because we have so many different videos to. Um, I have maybe. I'm not going to talk about how many videos I have, but I know I have to do more, just some, definitely. Um, I hope everybody's doing fine. Thanks for the views. This is my baby. This Dance Without Music, um, Xman physics. Okay, so I'm going to get right into it. During work, I come up with the lessons. It's a lot in between each lesson. These lessons have, especially precision now that we're in, have more time because it's a lot of time that I wasn't doing the classes. Of course, I was building on processing and figuring out more about, you know, going forward with this class. And it's going along very fine. Some of the things, the last three or the last two that I've done, they go hand in hand. I'm almost sure maybe this is the fourth one since I came back. There's some things I want to clear up. Oh yeah, the time. The time when I was talking about the Xman physics and the regular time and how 4 years is equal to 1 year of Xman physics. Okay, once you get your basics and you're in, and you're doing it and you know what's going on, that will, okay, I would have to say, because you have to know all these things. Because while you're doing the program, there's so many things that you have to think about. And so you're affected by so many things, so you know when you're going in the right direction. For me, I had to do it without knowing anything. It's terrible. Really, really. And if you're wrong sometimes, there's like a pain. There's a pain without, how can I say? A pain without suffering. You get to know these things, okay? Because it's good. Because it's not like a regular pain. It's just like, just a pain without knowing. Without injury or without, sort of like a discomfort, okay? Because you know it, but you've been doing it so long that you know that you have to figure out something. So, and you have to figure out exact, okay? So, what that has to do with the time is just that once you get to a certain point, like the 12 years, then you can understand all of that. You understand how the time works. I don't know why I put the time. What I'm figuring out is why I put this time in it. Oh yeah, I knew I was talking about the time, but why I put pain in it. It's just some of the things that you go through. But I'll see how I wanted to tie it in once I get to it. But what I wanted to tell you was about the time. The time for, like, for instance, 1 year, 4 years, like our years, is equal to 1 year Xman physics time. Okay, so what I was saying is that when you get to an Xman physics time, it starts around like the 12th year, okay? And you'll notice it. And then you'll be on Xman physics time, like I am on Xman physics time. So that means every year that I've covered with this class, and this is on the fourth year, it's like 4 years, okay? and you'll understand because your thinking is different and everything. Okay. Um, I'm still trying to figure out why I put in the pain. Why I wanted to tell you about the pain. Um, because there is some kind of pain, but I don't know why I wanted to tie that in. But it's not really like a pain bang. But so what's next? So I said before about the time, like 4 years. I was talking about it, and I was saying every 4 years. 4 years is like an Xman physics time. Okay. Um, but I guess what I wanted to say, and I was clearing it up. I'm clearing it up. I cleared it up for myself first, in the fact that 1 year, so that means 1 year that we're in is, okay, no, 1 year that we're in, no, 4 years that we're in is equal to 1 year of X-Men physics time. But 1 year, once you get to a certain point, is equal to 4 years this time, our time, okay? So I'm not saying, okay, I can't say whether I'm in that time now or I'm not. But it's just something you have to know, because we always think in the future, we think in the past, and we think in the present. And that's why the videos are good for now, because you can see what to expect. That's the future. You can enjoy them now, even if you're not at that point, and you can see how far you've come for the past, because that's our mind. That's the way our mind is. I didn't have that privilege. I couldn't see anything in the future. I mean, I knew what I wanted to do in the future, but as far as the program, it's just really something else. I guess that's why I wanted to say, that's why I wanted to put in about the pain, because I wanted to say that's some of the things you go through, and with the pain, once you get to a certain point, exactly where so that's what I wanted to say. When you get to a certain point, maybe after during or whatever, but as you process and mature in the class, you'll know the pain. It's such a sharp lesson. It's such a sharp message that it's hard for me to explain, but I'm getting better at it. So the time that you spend, this is really broken up. Okay, so I can't do it unless I have that exact point. But it's hard to explain, but I'm going to explain it. So anyway, let's get into the time, like I said. So that I don't know exactly if I'm in that time yet, but I know that once a year, 1 year will be like 4 years. And I tell you that because, like I said, you have to know about the future. And we think in the future, we think in the present, we think in the past. And then this thing I wanted to explain about. So I wanted to explain that you come to a point to where you get to know what's going on, okay? And like, for instance, I'll give you my example. Okay, there was a pain that I had, but I knew, this is talking about this thing that I wanted to tell you, but it's so hard to explain. This pain that I knew that I had, okay? But I knew exactly what it was. I knew that I had to, first of all, it's going to take its time. I had no control over the time, and I had to learn it, okay? And then once I learn it, you have to learn exactly what was causing you to discomfort, okay? You know that it's because of the program, but then you have to find out exactly what it is so that you know what to do. So I'm telling you this, but once you get to this certain point, you'll understand. But I have to tell you this because it happened to me, but I didn't know what. I didn't know anything. I just had to go by believing it, because I've done it so long, so I know what was going on. So I know it may sound scrambled, but you have to, that's the way it has to go right now. I don't take anything out because just my gibbering, you at that point you'll go, oh, I know exactly what he's talking about, and that's the way the course is. So I wanted to tell you about the time. I told you about the time. So we'll get to a point to where 1 year in Xman physics is equal to 4 years. No, 1 year regular time is equal to 4 years of Xman physics time. So every time we have a year, 365 days in a year, that 1 year is going to be like, because of your accomplishments and the things that you can do, is going to be like 4 years Xman physics time. And then I was saying before, okay, we have to keep going on. So I'll keep up with that when I get a chance to. But now let's go on because it's 11 minutes. So now let's some things that's one thing I wanted to clear up about the time, which is important. Okay. And the next thing I wanted to clear up was about what do you call it? Quadrants and X and Y. Okay, the quadrant and how they relate together, because everybody knows about quadrants because we're in the 4th year. The quadrant is, okay, how can I say? Okay, first I have to say the X and the Y. The X and the Y is the actual, the physical conditioning, or the physical whatever. I don't say body, but I had to replace body with something. So the closest thing to replace it with is X and Y. And to understand the X and Y, you have to go back to the class that I talked about X and Y. Now, the quadrant is space, the space that you use, okay? So it's more like time and space. The X and Y would be the time, and the quadrant would be like the space, okay? So if you have okay, so how can I explain this? So we have X and Y. I explained to X and Y. Then we have the space, which is the quadrant. So the quadrant is like the space, and the X and Y and Z is like the time, okay? The physical time. And we kind of went through this before. So if I'm walking, I'm using the quadrant, which I move with the quadrant. And the quadrant is attached to the powers. Like the quadrant houses the powers. I can't go into any definitions. If you want to know anything, you have to go from the beginning, but this is the 4th year. So the quadrant houses the quadrant. The quadrant houses the powers, okay? And the quadrant uses the X, Y, and Z, okay? It uses. But it's not, its closest thing to say is the body, but I don't use body parts. So let me explain something to you. Like, this is my Y. This is my Y, okay? And I'm using my quadrant because right now I'm using the the right quadrant or the natural quadrant. And if I make this Y, okay, so that means I need something to move the powers which are attached to the quadrant moves the X and Y. You need something to move. The powers are there, but it needs something to move. Okay? And it moves the X and Y. If I'm here, I'm in the other quadrant. So the other quadrant, and then we have a tool on the other quadrant, the other top quadrant tool, but it needs something to move, so that's X and Y. Okay? Now, what sends it apart from what I would say the body is the fact that my X and Y could be here. Okay? And if I'm lifting Y, okay, I'm lifting Y. I mean, I know I have a leg, but like I said, I can't, you have to cut things at the field that you're in. We're in a different realm, so I have to stay in the realm, otherwise you would really not understand. So here I am, I'm moving Y, okay? I'm in the natural quadrant and I'm moving Y. Okay, so now we're going to keep up with that. So once you're at this level, then you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about, so you don't have to worry. So now we're going to, one thing I've learned, remember the perimeter? I wanted to find the perimeter. And you're going to be able to do this too. I took away all the semiotics. At first the last thing I took away was the grids in the radical, we were working with radical 4, which is radical 4 and which is equal to 2 squared. Okay? And use numbers so that it can gain interest or whatever, but we don't use numbers. So I took away the numbers. I don't use the numbers, like I said in the former classes. And then I wanted to take away, the last thing I took away was the grid, because I wanted to know the perimeter of the space that I use, okay? The perimeter, like a perimeter of the radical 4, the perimeter of the square that I'm in, 2 squared, okay? And then I took away the radical. So I took away the grid lines and everything in squares, like corner, remember that? So then we went into a function, because if you know another class that I had, we did functions when we were walking, okay? The functions are in the mind. So now we don't have that. The only thing we have is a function. So I did functions, and then I was in the function, I went inside the function, which is in the mind. And then I said, and I was in there for a while, and no, I was watching the function. That's what I was doing, because functions you can't really see unless you're inside the function. So I was watching the function, and we were doing this, okay? But then I kept doing it, and I entered inside the function. Inside the function is everything that we do. Inside the function, what I saw was the fact that I was subconsciously, and it's still there, but I'm seeing, when you do something subconsciously, and then you don't do things subconsciously anymore. Like, for instance, I like to play tennis. I play it subconsciously. If I didn't do it subconsciously, I would be a pro, okay? So you kind of deteriorate your subconscious so that you can do things on your own. So in the function, where I was looking at the function, and then I went inside to look at the function, very discomforting. And I kept watching what was happening subconsciously. And then the subconscious started to break away. When the subconscious breaks away, because it goes like this, like a, that's like a subconscious, because it just does it all the time. But then I'm watching this, and then I'm going, oh, I see one thing. One thing is this. One thing is that. So the thing I found in the subconscious was the fact for the perimeter. I don't know what I'm going to find, because I took away the grid lines, and then the first thing I found was the brain. Okay, the movement, that it can make movements on its own. And believe me, you can't do this unless you've been at this stage, because I remember at an earlier stage I tried to do it and it didn't work, and I think it caused pain, and it's not a good idea to do until you can see, like I said, your sixth sense. Didn't you have a sixth sense? And I'm glad I'm speaking boringly or whatever, because you can't try things unless you really know what you're doing. The reason why, but you need the information. The reason why I know this, because it happened to me. I did all these things and it causes pain. Sometimes you go into processing, you can't get out. Okay, I want to tell you something about processing too, getting out of processing. You got all these things that happen, okay? And you know, I gotta stop finding new points, because when I find new points, it's very important, and I need to just not do them, because it messes up. But one good thing about the fact that I'm doing it this way is that you won't, the way it's scattered now, unless you know everything that I'm talking about, you won't be able to do it. You won't be able to be in any, like I tell you anyway, you have to wait. But it's good for entertainment to see. So anyway, okay, the sixth sense, that's very important. I don't know if I made it clear to you, but the sixth sense is, you know, like you see, I would call reading a sixth sense, okay? Something like a reading is a sixth sense. You have seeing, which is a sense. You have touch. You have seeing. You have hearing. You have taste. 1, 2, 3. 4 is feeling. Okay, let's see if we can do the senses. 1, 2, 3, and I got feeling, speech, smell, sight. There's one more I'm missing. 5 senses. We have 5 senses. Oh shoot. Touch. We have touch, which is 1. Then you have sight. Oh, there's 4. Okay, sight. Wow. Okay, sight. Smell. I think it's talk. That's a sense. I'm almost sure. One of the senses is speech. Speech and hearing. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and touch. Okay, but there's a sixth sense. The reason why I would call reading sixth sense is because you utilize, it's something internal, and it goes along with the sixth sense that I'm talking to you about, because it's not imaginary, okay? Reading comes to, because I'm there, I mean, reading comes to a point, I'm saying it could be a sixth sense, let me put it that way. Because if you're reading and you don't know what you're doing, you're just reading and enjoying yourself, okay? I still would call that a sort of a sixth sense. But it's like a tunnel. It's like a door, which is a door. But nobody's reached it. So anyway, I would say reading is a sixth sense in dance. Can I say dance without? Yeah, dance without music. Xman physics. Okay, so because you have to. It's not sensing the movements. It's not sensing. It's the real thing. It's really, really happening. And it's a sense. You need to develop that sixth sense of the powers. So I would call the sixth sense leads you to the powers, the being. And the only thing that's covering up the sixth sense for you now is the belief in gravity. And it takes a long time to get gravity out because there's powers which come up, okay? Which leads me to the point of being in the function and moving the brain. And don't try and move the brain, and like I said, unless you know what you're doing. But I have to say it for those people who are going to come to this stage. But I did it before, and it will cause injuries. I didn't do anything because I knew what was happening. I sense, because I was doing it so long, that there's a problem. But believe it or not, there's people who've tried to do these things and they injured themselves. There's people who were processing and kept processing, and then they keep processing instead of just saying, wait, this is too much processing, and they keep going. But that's not the way to do it, okay? So here, I'm telling you everything so you can have a beautiful life and understand things. So we go back. I have to do it this way, and I'm glad it's so boring because it keeps you, it lets you know that this is real and you're doing something very real and something very complicated and something very beautiful. But it could be tragic if you, I'm like, it can't be tragic because as long as you do follow the direction, anything can be tragic. It's just like everything, you have to be careful. I mean, with anything, you have to take care of things. But, I mean, it's not really a danger or anything like that because we are just following the rules, following directions, and that's the most important thing. Now it's 27 minutes. So now, the only thing I wanted to say is that moving your brain, that's where I came through when I was doing the functions. The reason why I had to stop and tell you that, because it happened to me, and I knew that there was a danger, and then I just come out. I could be processing, and I processed, and I knew I'm going to process too much, I'll pull out. And that's why I'm glad the classes are like this, is that I pull out. If you notice, if you follow this class before, if you're in the 4th year and you follow the class, you notice I pull out whenever I have to. There was one time I couldn't do any functions. I couldn't complete a function of a radical, and I just pulled out. And I said it, I said, I can't do it. And instead of trying to keep doing it. So anyway, so that's what I found so far in finding, searching for the perimeter. The first thing I saw was the function. I looked at the function, and then I went into the function, and I saw subconscious. And from the subconscious, I was able to derive that I can move the brain, okay? But like I said, it's taken a long time. So now I'm going to do that perimeter, let's call it the perimeter exercise, with using the moving of the brain, okay? And you see, but it's such a joy because I did it and I took my time to do it. And I would have to say it would be like 12 years, 10 to 12 years to get to this point. And that's one reason why I had this time. Okay, so now I'm going to go in through it and then I'm going to close, okay? If you followed the last 3 lessons, you know this is about the finishing, closing. But this time, I'm not in a radical, okay? I'm inside the function, okay? In my mind, I'm moving my brain. I'm not going to say I'm moving my mind, I'm moving my brain, okay? And I can say brain because it's more of a way it's moving. I mean, I'm moving it. That's another thing. And that's another thing to tell you, don't do it, because you have to know where the function is, and you have to know how to do it. You can do it subconsciously, but don't do it like this, okay? So here I am. I'm going to do the whole thing, and I just want to let you know that's where I'm moving things to, okay? So I can do it, and I'm just gonna, now you just have to follow me. But I'm telling you, the brain is leading. I have, the brain is leading. I mean, I showed you how the legs were leading, I showed you how Z was leading, now I'm showing you how the brain is leading. Okay, and that's it. Okay, so that was it. But that was total pure processing. So I wouldn't be able to do it because I'm new at this. And that's one thing good about the program is that you actually see me going through all these things. Okay, because I didn't know. I thought I was going to be able to just tell you. And so, just for you all, but I have to actually do it. But the thing about it is, I'm glad I can do it, you know? And that's a processing. There's a pure processing. It's a pure, when you study with the core, you don't have to study that long. I mean, like what I just did, it is so much intense that you don't have to do it that much. I mean, it just goes right to it. Okay, so I'm still learning, and that's as far as we went. Now we moved our brain, and it's so neat because I mean, I'm not doing it subconsciously. But just watch this. I mean, maybe I'll put this on the short. Music. Okay, thank you.